The character Hartman is clearly based off of Lieutenant Carl Timmerman in all but name. Angel is kind of an imaginative amalgamation of Alexander Drabik, who was the first man to actually cross the Rhine at Remagen, and another sergeant named Joseph Delizio. Even though neither man really fit the characteristics of him, they both kind of serve what Angel does throughout the film in terms of the actual battle itself. Major Barnes is credited on Wikipedia as being inspired by Major Devers. However, knowing the battle itself, to me, Barnes actually fits more with Lieutenant Colonel Engelmann. He is a little bit of Major Devers, and we'll get into why a little bit later. General Schinner, I think that's what his name is. I can't even remember his name being mentioned once in the entire film. He's basically General Hoge and a little bit of General Hodges, who was Hoge's superior. Yeah, isn't that kind of confusing that their names sound so similar? We have Major Kruger, who's my favorite character of the film and the best character in the movie by far. Major Kruger is very clearly Major Scheller, who was sent to the bridge at the very last moment. The character Carl Schmidt is very clearly Willy Brodka, who was supposedly in charge of the defenses at Remagen. And then you have Otto Baumann, which is clearly inspired by Karl Friesenhahn, who was the man in charge of the explosives and the engineering portion of the Remagen Bridge. Though the casting on this one is actually quite weird. The guy who plays Carl Schmidt, who's in a lot of these war movies, is an older man, which does fit in line with Willy Brodka. In fact, he even looks a little bit like the real Willy Brodka. Otto Baumann is played by a rather young man, and in reality, Friesenhahn was much older than the actor we see here. In fact, Friesenhahn was a World War I veteran and a loyal Nazi early on. I mean, I think even earlier than 1933, which is actually one reason why it is believed that he was actually spared from quote-unquote the firing squad, was because of his loyalty to the Nazi party. General Oberst von Brock, according to Wikipedia, is credited as being Walter Bosch. This is another one kind of similar to General Schinner as for the Americans, who I think that isn't actually correct. I think Brock actually fits more in line with General Hitzfeld. Hitzfeld was the man who was placed very last second supposedly to be in charge of the Remagen Bridge.